This episode was recorded January 8th, 2026. New year, new legislative session. Lawmakers head back to Columbia next week to write new laws, progress old projects, and to get to work fixing broken systems. But will we see new and innovative policy initiatives, or is it back to the same priorities we see every year? I'm Nick Reagan, and in this episode of We the Palmetto, it's the Republican agenda. Plus, what State Senator Bryan Adams hopes to accomplish with his personal priorities as well. We talked to Lowcountry voters. Trump was in true campaign form. Voting is officially underway. Joe Biden spoke here in the heart of downtown.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, earlier this week, Republican leadership in the Senate actually gathered in Columbia to lay out their priorities for the 2026 legislative session. At the top of their list is actually going to be DUI legislation. We'll talk to Senator Bryan Adams about that here in just a minute, but Republicans generally believe that the laws are currently a little too weak, and they've already pre-filed some bills to increase penalties for DUIs. We do see criminal justice-like reforms every year. Sometimes it's around bond, other times it's cracking down on whatever that year's drug is. This year, it seems like they're going to be going after DUIs. Now, senators also mentioned reforms to infrastructure funding, and of course, abortion's always a priority for conservatives. While most mainstream Republicans are comfortable with the state's 6-week abortion ban, more conservative members, like those in the Freedom Caucus, they want to go further. At least one pre-filed bill has already been discussed before the legislative session started, and that one would restrict abortions to near conception level. Basically, it's a near total abortion ban. Now, that may not make it out of committee, but other efforts to restrict things like abortion pills that you can get in the mail may have more support. Republican leaders, they didn't actually bring this up, but there is a lot of pressure from outside of the state house to address the way judges are selected in this state. We're seeing governor candidates talk about it. We're also seeing certain members of the state legislature talk about the system and are looking for ways to redo it. Right now, a group of lawmakers picks our judges, and it's controversial because those lawmakers are generally also lawyers who then practice in front of those judges. So that is kind of under a microscope right now, that system. And again, some of the lawmakers are hoping to change that. We'll just have to see how far that makes its way through the state house and whether or not anything actually does change. But for now, let's go ahead and bring in Republican State Senator Bryan Adams from District 44. First off, thanks for making the time. Thanks for being here.
Listen, I appreciate the invite and always look forward to talking to you.
Okay, so we've got the legislative session coming up next week, the 2026 legislative session. What is going to be coming up that people need to be following?
Well, I think there's going to be a couple issues that will pop up that we need to address in South Carolina. One is near and dear to me is our DUI law. We've got to refocus onto the DUI law and make it to where it's impactful to where people don't think they can drive under the influence. And that's got to address a bunch of different things. There's a lot of new chemical agents out there right now that will impede people's driving, and we got to figure out how to work around some of those things. We also have to stop the way some people will get multiple DUIs. I've seen as many as 8 DUIs on a driving history, but they've pled them all down to a first. And we've got to stop that because they're not learning their lessons. If you got 8 DUIs on your driving history, you're not learning your lesson. So that's something that's important to me. And that's going to be one of the things I think you'll see early in session.
We did see the DUI legislation is coming back. It seems like the leadership really wants that to happen. One of the other things that we're seeing a lot of rumblings about, at least from certain segments of the Republican caucus, is additional changes to the abortion law. What do you think we're going to see on that front? And also, where do you stand on whether or not we need to make any changes to South Carolina's abortion law?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I do see some push for that. I think we're in a good place right now. Personally, I believe that life begins at conception. I think However, that I don't believe that that is the majority of South Carolina. So I think I need to get more information from my constituents and see, and kind of go and build my stance regarding my constituents. I do believe that we have several Republican caucus members that are very passionate about this, and God love them. I believe that is something. If you're passionate about it, you fight for it and see where it lands, and that's kind of where I think we're heading, and we'll see.
I know that the Freedom Caucus, for example, and Rom Reddy and folks like that are looking at trying to integrate some AI tools to find out where South Carolina's government is not being as efficient as possible. Do you think that we could see more of that and put into practice to clean up where the areas of the state government that are simply not operating as efficiently and effectively as possible?
Oh, absolutely. I can see us still continuing to grow in that direction to save the taxpayers as much money as possible. Last year, you saw us remove a lot of these where we give money to these the nonprofit organizations, and do things like that. I think you saw us cut that out last year, and you're seeing where states have been given to nonprofits, knowing that there's been activity going on, and that is a loss of taxpayer money. And we stopped that last year because we didn't want the abuse to be out there. We didn't want people taking advantage of taxpayer money if they're not using the money for the right things that they said they were going to be used for. So that's why we got rid of a lot of our community money and man, Nick, I forgot what that doggone.
Yeah, I keep thinking like pork barrel spending and stuff. I'm like, that's not quite the right word, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So we went out and we cut a lot of that, and we got rid of those expenses because of that. But I do think we're going to continue to grow, and I think do I think AI will play a part? I think AI is getting ready to play a part in everything. We're not going to stop it. It's kind of like the internet when it came out, and it just kept going and going. Social media is another example of that. We couldn't stop, that. And I'm going to tell you, I think if you get to a point where you don't embrace the technology, I think you get behind the eight ball, and you're not staying up with it, and it catches you at the end.
We've seen some nonprofits already come forward, some advocacy groups come forward asking for state legislation to regulate AI. Do you have any plans, or do you know of any of your colleagues that have any plans to put on some state regulations to some of these AI companies and what they're able to do?
I haven't seen any legislation yet. That doesn't mean there hasn't been none, or I haven't missed it. It would not surprise me if it pops up. I do not have technology background. I couldn't tell you a millibyte from a tech byte or whatever you want to call those things. I can't break it apart. So I probably would not be the one that would bring up any type of AI legislation. And I'd have to learn as that stuff would come up.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a problem for a lot of the legislatures and governing bodies, is that there's only a handful of people. I mean, even people that are in tech don't fully have a grasp on everything that's capable, and also, what the potential dangers could be to the public and to public freedoms and rights and things. So I think you're, spot on with, we need somebody up there who knows everything, that can sort of walk everyone through it.
Absolutely.
The other day, Representative Nancy Mace, she was at the State House. She introduced an idea, because she obviously can't introduce legislation, but she introduced this idea of a bill that would basically ban and punish any sheriffs from resisting ICE efforts. Of course, we're seeing a lot of ICE efforts in other areas, and it's proving extremely controversial right now. Do you foresee any kind of legislation along that front coming out this year? Would you support something like that?
I would support that. I don't have any issues with that. It should already be, I'm not saying if your agency, because we have a lot of small agencies in South Carolina. So I'm not saying it where if ICE is in the area and you have the ability to go help them, and if they ask for help, I would hope that our agencies would help. Um, but at the same time, we shouldn't also be allowed vandalism, assaults on ICE agents or any Department of Homeland Security. We should not be allowed as a state. We should be protecting them because they're in our state, just as we'd protect any other person in our state, whether we agree with them or not. So that's what law enforcement's about. That's where we should stand. Whether we agree with that person that's there or not, we protect them. And that's what our law enforcement agency in South Carolina do.
I want to hear about some of the projects that you may be bringing up personally or pieces of legislation that you want to accomplish this year. But before I get there, state income tax, again, always one of those issues. And quite frankly, I don't know where we are in getting it to zero. I just know that all the top politicians keep talking about dropping it down to zero, and we've got this plan in place already. But just sort of bring everybody up to speed. Where are we with state income tax, and where do you expect we'll go this year?
Well, first, the numbers thing is not my forte either, unfortunately. However, learning and talking to those that are the numbers people within our caucus, they say that we need to do a overhaul of our tax rates and our taxes throughout the state, whether it's involving income tax, property tax, any kind of tax. We need to do an overhaul of that because from what I'm understanding is you have a funnel and you have all these taxes at the top that need to be paid and a few at the bottom are paying all those taxes. And so we need to make sure that it's fair, that it's impacting the state best, and that we are doing the right thing for our taxpayers in South Carolina. So in saying that, I would love to get income tax zero. But I'm going to tell you what I hear more about, and that's property tax. We need to address our property taxes. I hear about that more from my constituents than I do the income tax. And we do need to address that as well. And that goes back to talking to those who know about numbers in that tax area, that we need to overhaul our tax plan in South Carolina.
All right, well, what are you going to be working on this year? You got any pet projects or anything that you're going to bring to Columbia in 2026?
Yeah, so I'm working on a couple different things. One of the things is, again, a DUI. I'm working along with Senator Tom Davis on his bill 53 to address the DUI issues we're having in South Carolina. That's going to be important to me. Matter of fact, we'll have a committee meeting on it, I believe, next week as soon as we get back. That's important to me too. What's also important to me is getting more law enforcement officers back on the road. We're short in South Carolina. We need to make sure we can get more officers back on the road to protect the citizens of South Carolina and get those within our agencies back to full staffing where they need to be. We're in a good spot in South Carolina, but I don't want to take our foot off the gas either. If you're looking at different cities and counties and that, they're saying we're doing really well with crime and community impacts and having our relationships are being built up in South Carolina. But that doesn't mean we stop. That means we continue to build and make sure we are having a positive impact all over the state. So that's part of it. Another part of it is I think we need to work on getting our law enforcement agencies all on very similar in a closed page. Like if we can build a statewide accreditation, we already have one, but now we need to get some more the local and the state agencies across the state to kind of take part in that and get more to the state accreditation where we're all operating about the same. So there's other things out there too that I'll be part of. But those are kind of some of my main things.
Those are the big ones. You know, I think overshadowing this entire legislative session is going to be the governor's race. You know, I already referenced Nancy Mace was at the Capitol yesterday or earlier this week or last week, whenever it was. Nancy Mace was at the Capitol recently attempting to propose some legislation. We know that the Attorney General is always up at the Capitol, given his position, and the same with the Lieutenant Governor. The point being, I expect that the governor's race is going to play a role in the legislature in one way or another. Have you endorsed a candidate for governor yet?
I have, and talking about legislation that could pop up from the governor's race, anything that they're on the trail as they're campaigning, they could hit certain things and become hot button subjects, and they could force our direction to change sometimes, and we end up maybe taking up some legislation like the where we do legislation to help with what Nancy Mace is considered or what she is asking us to do. But at the same time, I did endorse Alan Wilson for governor, and I hope he gets out there and does what he needs to do. And I think he's a very strong advocate for law enforcement, and he's got the background, and I see good things with him.
Okay. Well, Senator Bryan Adams, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate it.
In other political news, Attorney General Alan Wilson has become the first gubernatorial candidate to select his running mate. He's selected Mike Reichenbach from Florence. He's a state senator from District 31. He owns a car dealership and has been a state senator since 2021. Also, the deadline for governor candidates to submit their fourth quarter campaign finance reports is today, which means tomorrow we'll know who's winning the fundraising war. A number of candidates have already sent out press releases ahead of the deadline, saying that they've taken in $1 million in the last cycle. I'll have a deep dive on those numbers a little later, so make sure you keep an eye on both my X account and on our Live 5 News website. We'll have full reporting on that. And then finally, a pair of special elections. This week, Republican Greg Ford snuck out a victory over Democrat Sonia Ogletree-Satani in the race for District 98's House seat. That's in Dorchester County. On election night, Ford led Satani by about 20 votes. An automatic recount is still underway at the time of recording this podcast, but for now, he is expected to win that race. And another special election, this one in North Charleston, is happening on Tuesday to replace Mike Brown. He was one of 3 city councilmen in North Charleston that were indicted last year on corruption charges. There are 6 candidates running in that race. That's going to be all for this episode of We the Palmetto. Thank you for joining me, and we will see you next week.